Well, I am doing another tutorial on creating items for travelers' notebooks. Yesterday, I filmed a tutorial on creating a pocket dashboard in the pocket size. Um, so this was the back of the dashboard, and then I showed you how to create the floral cutout pockets. So that was yesterday. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit with creating those bookmarks that have the words at the top. So I've opened my Silhouette Studio. Again, I have the business edition. The basic is very similar. There's some icons that are not in the basic edition, but you'll have every icon you need in the basic edition. And again, the basic edition can be found for free download on the Silhouette America website, silhouetteamerica.com/software is where you will find that, and it is the basic edition. So we are going to be designing today. So I clicked on my design icon. If you remember yesterday, I go in and change my registration marks. If you are not going to be cutting this with a Silhouette, you really don't even need to mess with this step. My only suggestion would be if you are not going to be cutting it with a Silhouette machine, you can go ahead and, excuse me, turn off your registration marks, and that's where you would do that right here. So as you can see, it's got two different types. This is for a cameo machine, a portrait machine, or a curio machine. This is for the original Silhouette machine and an SD machine. So I know this was the old style. This is the style I always use. If you don't want them at all, you just get rid of them. Notice that I still have my print and cut lines. The red is the cut line, means it could cut anything within that boundary. And the gray is your print line. So for my printer, I know that it will not print on this bottom edge anything beyond 0.625. That's why my registration marks are like that. Now, since I'm going to be cutting these with my Silhouette, I'm going to go ahead and have my registration marks on here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and rotate my view. Again, this was in the design page settings. And for something like this where I'm going to create several across the page and they're taller rather than thinner, taller rather than wider, this is how I want my page set up to design it. It hasn't changed any of my settings. It will still cut the same. The mat will still load into the machine the same. Now this one I will say, yesterday with the pockets, it was a pretty straightforward in terms of cutting after the fact. Like after you've created it and printed it out, cutting's not going to be too terribly tricky. On this one, this is one where having a Silhouette is going to make the process slightly easier. It depends on which words you're creating and how small that text is. An X-Acto knife would come in handy, and I know a couple of people I've seen some videos of like the gyro cut. Now, that does not mean you can't create your bookmarks. I'm actually show you two different techniques. One is going to be easier if you do have a Silhouette cutting machine. Because it will cut the letters for you. The other option is to basically create a tab at the top of your bookmark or your placeholder, whatever you want to call it. And instead of having the letters cut out themselves, you would have something behind them. So we're going to start out real quick. Some tools we're going to use today. We're going to use the rounded rectangle tool. I like rounded corners on my items, especially if I'm going to laminate them. Laminated items with pointy corners tend to be fairly sharp, and I just don't really prefer that, and I like the finished look of a rounded edge. You could absolutely do a regular rectangle. So we're going to be using the rounded rectangle tool. We're also going to be using the text tool, and this is actually when you select creating text, this is where you'll come first. We'll also be using the text styles window, which is up here. We're going to be using our modify tool, which is where we will weld our shapes together. We're also going to likely be using the scale window where we can resize things to make it the size we want. And probably also the align window to get things lined up nice and centered and pretty. So we're going to start with our rounded rectangle. Now, as I said in my other tutorial, I don't try to get it to the perfect size when I draw it. I go in later and go to my scale tool and select it exactly as I want it to be, exactly the dimensions. So in this case, I'm going to be creating some little inserting bookmarks for my pocket size. It's also called a field note size or a number 2 Foxy Fix. And I know that my inserts for that size are 3.5 inch wide by 5.5 inches tall. So my bookmark or my little page, marker, I personally want a small little one. You can make one that is the length of your book. You can make one that's the width of your book, and then it becomes almost like a dashboard within your insert. That is perfectly fine. Myself, I'm going to unlock my aspect, and I'm going to show you what I set mine at for my number 2. So because my number 2 is 3.5 inches wide, I like 2.5 inches for my width. It's a little bit smaller than the, excuse me, it's a little bit smaller than the insert itself in terms of width, but it gives me enough space across the top for my text. And that's a big piece of this. When I created my checkbook register insert page marker, the word checkbook's awfully long, and so my text had to be much smaller, and that would definitely make hand cutting almost impossible. Now, the height of my insert is 5.5. Now, I want my finished bookmark to be between 4 and 4.5 inches. That's my own personal preference. So if I take that into account, I'm going to go ahead and set my height at 4. And the reason why I set it at 4 is that I know I'm going to have text up here. Or in the case of creating, one second please. In the case of creating the one with the tab at the top, that's obviously going to have to have room as well. So I have zoomed in a little bit, so you'll see I have my rounded rectangle here. It's 2.5 by 4. Now I'm going to create 3 on this page. So I'm going to go ahead and use my shortcuts and do Command C, Command V, Command V. And I've now made 3 copies. So basically what I did was I copy and pasted it. So you could go here. I've already copied it. So Command C is my shortcut for copying something on a Mac. I know on a PC it is Control C. So I'm going to do, and then obviously to paste it is Command V or Control V. So let me put my copies back. Now I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can get these lined up on the page somewhat. Notice I'm making sure that in the excuse me, my words are a little jumbly today. Seeing as I am going to be cutting this with my machine, and I did not mention this in my other video, so this is a good opportunity to mention this. You may notice that you've got your registration marks, you've got your red cut line and your gray print line, and then you've got all this cross-hatched area. I found very shortly after playing around with my settings that if I put this rectangle here and it's empty, it will cut that shape because it is within my cut lines. But the minute I add a paper to this, it has a print. And you cannot put anything that is going to print within this area that's cross-hatched here or cross-hatched here. And the reason being is your optical scanner, which is how your Silhouette will read your registration marks, cannot have anything that is closer than that amount of space to within the registration mark, or it will give you a error. And that's really irritating when you're like, why do I keep getting errors? It's because you've got stuff too close to your registration marks. So I make sure that all of mine are within the white area they're within the boundaries of both the cut and print lines. And just because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, I'm going to go ahead and align them. Plus, it gives me an opportunity to, again, remind you of your align window, which will allow you to get things lined up. I'm going to align middle, which means it's going to take and draw an imaginary line across here and make sure everything is aligned evenly. I don't have any preferences to how far these are apart, just so long as they're within my boundaries. Now, I am going to go ahead and zoom in on one, and I'm going to show you how I create my text for this bookmark. So, I'm going to come down here to my text tool and click, and you'll notice it changed from my arrow. My arrow means that that's just where I am on the page. When I move to hand, that is allowing me to select something. When I go to text, it's going to give me the text bar, and then I'm going to click on it. And mine defaults to Arial 72 with a left justification, 100% character spacing, and 100% line spacing. This actually has added a lot of my fonts that I have that I've found on the internet. I love DaFont if I'm going to be doing this for personal use. Those are created by some amazing font artists. It's DAFONT.com, DaFont. You may not use any of those for commercial use. You would have to go through the artist and purchase a commercial use license on those fonts. I very much believe in copyright and trademarked and things of that nature, and especially with copyright, I want to be aware that an artist took the time to create these fonts, and it is not right for me to profit off of it. So any of the fonts that I use when I was making my sticker kits, for my logos, anything like that, I went and purchased the commercial rights to use those in a commercial way. And the ones that I specifically like, I like these KG fonts. This is an artist who has come up with a lot of fantastic fonts, and I was introduced to her work through teaching, because a lot of hers, specifically, if you'll notice, she's got one called Miss Kindergarten, and I'll just show you if I write. It's going to look like an elementary school handwriting. Neatly Printed is another one that I like of hers, which again is kind of that primary look. But for today's sake, I'm just going to show you, because you may not have a bunch of fonts. I'm going to show you with Arial, because every computer comes with Arial, and Arial is a very straightforward font. There's not a lot of frills to it. You can get frilly, but I found with these dashboards, or excuse me, these bookmarks, that it's much, much easier to use one that is more angular or straight. It just looks better. Now, if I'm going to create one for lists, okay, you could do lists, you could do to do. We'll do that one, to do. Now, I personally like the look of all caps. That is up to you. Again, this is a personal preference thing. Now, if you notice, that is way too big for that. So there's a couple of things I can do. I obviously can go in and change my sizing, which is what I'm going to do first. So if I go down to a 48, which it kind of jumps from 48 to 72, you can put any amount, you can put any font size in here, in this box, and change it. It just has 48, 72. And when I went to 48, it's a little on the small side for me now. I'm not loving it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, click on it. I'm going to go back to 72, but I'm going to show you another trick. When I was creating things, a little backstory. When I was creating things in Microsoft Word, one of the things that frustrated me is when I had two lines of text, they would be spaced very far apart. And kind of the graphic mindedness of myself, I sometimes like things to be kind of just so. And I didn't like that I could not get that. With this program, you're able to adjust a lot of things. So one of the things you can actually adjust is your character spacing, which that will adjust the amount of space you have between your letters and between words. You also have, this doesn't really come into play now, but you've got line spacing, which means if I had a secondary line, I can decrease or increase that spacing to make it more visually appealing for me or to fit in the way that it needs to fit. So we're going to be working with character spacing. Now you can use your down arrow or your up arrow to change the percent. Or one of the things I like to do first on especially fonts like this, I kind of just eyeball it and go, okay, let's try 80%. And what you'll see is, I really like what happened here, that they're just barely. I don't like this right here. But here's the interesting thing. In a minute, we're going to be using the welding tool. And if I was going to be cutting this by hand, I actually wouldn't dislike this so much because it would become one area, one letter, so to speak, or one thing to cut out. But what I've noticed is this is too much for what I'm doing today. So again, my BFF in Silhouette Studio is my undo. So I knew 80% was too much. So now I'm going to go, okay, let's try 90%. And that actually looks pretty good. I kind of like the spacing how it is. Now, I will say, if I didn't so much like this spacing right here, you can go in, you can delete that. There's lots of things you can do. But at this point, I'm getting closer to where I want to be. I'm still a bit too wide. I want it to be within the parameters of my rounded rectangle and about here. It's kind of where that curve starts. I want my text to be within there so it sits nicely in my notebook. So I'm going to go down a little bit in size. I'm going to try, like, say, 64. There's no rhyme or reason to the numbers I pick. I play around with it. Again, use that undo. Play around with it. See what looks good to you, aesthetically pleasing to you. So as you can see, I now have, it's still a little bit beyond what I want it to be. Excuse me. So I'm going to change it one more time, and I'm going to go to 60. And that looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here. Actually, I'm going to do something real quick. So what I'm going to end up doing is, much like with my dashboards, I'm going to end up welding these two shapes together. If you think about a welder, they're taking two pieces of metal and a compound of some sort to stick those two pieces of metal together. Welding two shapes together basically means I'm going to get rid of these cut lines that are right here that overlap. And it's going to create one solid shape. So I want these letters to overlap just enough so that I keep the integrity of the letter. I don't want to go to this point because then you're going to lose some of that integrity. Yeah, we know that's an O. We know that's something. We know that's an O. I like to just barely, and I don't want to go like this where they're sitting because that makes these points kind of weak. And when you start trying to get your papers off of your Silhouette mat or you start cutting by hand, you've got some points of weakness where, let's face it, I probably would end up chopping a letter off. So I like to go about, it's hard to even tell you what that measurement is right there, but like a sliver. And then I'm going to take and select both of my shapes, my text shape and my rounded rectangle. I'm going to go up here again to my modify window. It has the gray box with the little turquoise M for modify. Click on that. Again, there's lots of tools in here, and I'll get to some of those in other videos. But for this sake, we're doing welding. We're going to take two shapes. In this case, they're showing you. And I love this about this program, that it will show you kind of a little icon that will help you to know, okay, what is this one going to do? And if you hover over it, it's going to tell you exactly what it's going to do. It's going to take the selected shapes and make it into one shape. And as you can see, they had a rectangle and a circle. They stuck them together. Now you got a rectangle circle shape. So I'm going to do that with my letters. So here comes the magic. Now I have a bookmark that has the letters on top, and it's all one shape. Now this is I like this. I like creating the templates, but I know some people do not. That's not the fun part. In my opinion, the most fun part is when I get to go in and start selecting what do I want this to look like. And for today's sake, I'm going to do a fun little paper I already have loaded in. If you would like information or like to see a video on how I organize my Silhouette Studio library, I am more than happy to do that. I did mention in a previous video how I load papers in. I'm going to use something that is already preloaded into my file system. And I'm actually going to use a glitter paper. And I love all my glitter papers. As you can see, I have a lot of glitter papers. I'm actually going to go in, though. Do I want glitter polka dots? Not really. I want a glitter paper. I'm going to show you another kind of cool technique also. And this pink right here is kind of screaming at me. I love pink. And I love pink glitter. So we're going to click on that. Remember, click once. And if you remember over in my drawing area, I have my shape selected. So that when I come back, my bookmark is full of glittery goodness. And it's so super cute. Now, I'm going to show you one other trick before I move on to another bookmark. Actually, I'm going to do my other bookmarks. And then I'm going to come back and show you how to add some cute clip art to this to make it even more personalized. Now, we're going to zoom out a little bit. So we've got a to-do. I have one for a checkbook register. I know some people would like weekly and monthly, and so I think I'll do one of those. So let's see. We're going to, again, click on our text tool. Click on our drawing area. And it doesn't matter if it's up here because I'm going to move it down. So we're going to do weekly. And again, I like my capital letters. Way too big. So again, we're going to come in. We're going to resize it. I'm going to try that 60 again. I'm afraid it's still going to be way too big. So let's try 48. If you'll notice, I'm getting closer. I'm not quite there. You'll also notice the to-do is larger than the weekly. And so that's a little frustrating because if you want them all the same size, I'm going to show you how to take care of that. Excuse me. So here's what my suggestion would be. I like how this one is the 60. I like that size of a letter. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put it back to 60. Okay. It's obviously way, way, way too big. So, and if I do my character spacing, I'm going to probably run into the issue I had over here where letters start to overlap. I'm not too concerned with them overlapping on this one so much, but I want to try something first. And again, this is where playing around comes in. I'm kind of playing around to see, okay, what does it look like? I don't like that because it's changing the size of my text. Here's another option. What I basically am doing is if I move this in and out, and this is very similar to the process you would use with Microsoft Word to change the shape of something. So this is not new. If I go here and I have my diagonal arrows, that's going to allow me to resize the shape or the text or whatever the case may be within the original ratios. The original ratio is, 3.411 horizontally is in ratio with the 0.931. And so then when I go like this, it's going to reduce the image size but maintain that ratio. Undo. I don't want to do that. I would like for it to stay the same size as to do, but I want it to fit within these parameters. So the width of my rounded rectangle, and like I said, I'm going to try this out. I may not like it. Again, that's undo, and we try things, and we try different things. So I'm going to actually try making my text 2.5 inches across. So I'm going to go into my scale tool. I don't want the aspect to change for the height. I want it to be that 0.931. So I'm going to unlock my aspect, and I'm going to go like this. And this is probably going to look terrible. If it doesn't, that'll be great. If it does, it's okay. And then we're going to cross our fingers, and we're going to click OK. That actually doesn't look that bad. Basically, what it's done is kept the height so that the height of these letters is the same as these. So they're going to stick out from your page the same amount of space. But it's gone and squeezed them in together. It's basically resized each letter. It hasn't overlapped any, so I kind of like that. So I'm going to do, again, I'm going to overlap my letters with my edge here just a little bit. I've still got enough of definition that you can see that's an L, not an I. You can see that's an E. This Y is a little precarious down here, but it'll be okay. And now I'm going to take, and this is a big step before you weld. If you're kind of want things a certain way, we want to align these center. I don't want to center them because that will take the weekly and put it right over the middle of the box. I'm going to align center just like that. And so it's going to get them lined up. Go back up here to my modify tool. And again, I'm going to magically make them one. Da, 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 da. And then I'm going to go in, now that I've got my shape selected, go back into my folder. I'm going to pick another glitter paper. And right now, I saw one a minute ago. This one's kind of speaking to me, but I really like this one. And I will tell you, sometimes when I'm creating something, I try to be a little bit considerate of my ink supply and how much I really want to buy more ink. And I know that sounds totally ridiculous. I do have a color laser jet printer, so ink is not super inexpensive for it. And but it does last a very long time. But if I was doing a project for myself, I would be aware of how much ink I was using and things of that nature. So sometimes, I'm not going to lie, I would pick more muted tones over bolder colors. But for today, let's go with bold. And I kind of like this one that it's a mix between a pink and a purple. Again, click once, come back over. Beautiful. Got one more. And then we're going to do monthly on this one. So we're good here. We're going to, again, select text. Put our text bar up there. Monthly. We're going to bring it down. It's way too big. But remember, we're going to first size it down to 60. Please excuse my charm bracelet on my Mac. And then we're going to take it again, and we're going to try doing the same thing we did with the weekly, but for the monthly. Again, unlock the aspect ratio because we want this height to stay the same, so all of our bookmarks are the same in terms of height and width and all of that. And we're going to make our width 2.5 inches because that is the width of this rounded rectangle. We're going to hit enter. We're going to click apply. We want it to work. And then we're going to look and say, huh, looks pretty good. This one's a little wider because of how many letters there are. And I'm not super loving how this Y is real close to that edge. So I'm actually going to go in and go, 2.4. I like that a little bit better. Just even that little point, 0.1 of an inch is helpful. Now, I'm going to get my amount of overlap here. Next step, don't forget this. I know you're excited to see the magic of the welding, but don't forget to go in and align them. And again, we're not aligning middle because that will, again, bring them down, bring the monthly down here. We want to align center. So we've got them centered now. I've already got them both selected, so I can go into my modify window. And then again, magic of welding. 1, 2, 3. Ta-da! And then we're going to go in and pick our last glitter paper. And I already know which one it's going to be because I am always obsessed with some version of turquoise blue. And I think we're going to go with that one. Now, all of my papers I have purchased. I do not, again, we talked about copyright. I am not a proponent of going and share. I do not share my files. I use my files within what is allowed by the seller of the papers. That being said, there have been kits I have purchased that don't allow for commercial use. I don't use them, even though I'm just a small little teeny tiny Etsy shop. They're an artist. They created it. It's amazing to me, some of the things that people come up with. I don't want to break those laws. And it's not just a moral thing. It is the law. So anything that you see me using either has a small commercial license with it, or if it's a personal use, I'm probably not showing you on here because that's just, again, most of them are purchased on Etsy. I've gotten a few through Creative Market. And there are some great Etsy shops, and I might do a video on some of my favorites that sell beautiful, cute, fun, different, artistic paper packs and clip art that are very inexpensive. And so you can create all these fun things for yourself, and there you go. I mean, you can do it for very inexpensive. I love the shops that sell things like this, but if I want mine to look like my personal, sometimes I make something because I can't find what I want to find. Now, I said I was going to show you one more thing. I'm going to show you how to add a cute little clip art of some sort to each of these bookmarks. Now, when I want to go in and add a clip art to something, if I was to click here and go into my library, how I added the paper, and click on my clip art, you might have already guessed that it's going to fill this in with that clip art. I don't like that. So I'm going to make sure I have absolutely nothing selected. Actually, before I go into my library, I'm going to do what I recommended on my last video that I don't tend to follow very well myself, which is to go ahead and save this. And I'm going to save it because we've done a lot of work at this point, and we're going to call these pocket page markers. That's good. That makes sense. Don't ask me how I come up with my file names. I just try to make something that I can find again. It's also why I usually create a PDF of something, is that then I can see the preview of it, because you will not see a preview on a Silhouette file on your computer. Your computer does not support showing a preview on the icon of that item. If I was to click here again, it would fill my clip art in. So I make sure I have absolutely nothing selected so I don't get frustrated with myself. Now I'm going to go in, and I have lots of different clip art sets, and I kind of have an idea of what I want to use. But I need to find it first. And I think I have glitter paper clips, which are really cute, but that's not what I want to use. Let's see, what do I want to use today? Let's see what's in my kawaii folder. I have some cute stuff in my kawaii folder. Kawaii sweets are cute, but no. Kawaii penguins are cute, but we're kind of out of that winter time. Really cute. Okay, I know what I want to do. I like these fish. This is from, I think it's called Digital Artsi, and she is on Etsy. And I love her stuff because it's got really, really super cute, bright colors, and they're kind of that watercolor effect, and they kind of border on kawaii. So, if I want, I'm going to go ahead and add 3 of these to my document. So, I'm not going to click once because that's not going to do anything because I have nothing selected. So, I'm going to double click to bring up the little, bring up my little list. If I click open, it's going to do just that. It's going to open it, but it's going to open it in its own file next to my page. I don't really need it to do that. I can if I'm going to take it and add cut lines or things like that. I'm not adding cut lines. I just want to put this on top of my paper. So I'm going to do what is called merge. And I just did what I said I didn't want to do, which was open it. Okay, well, it's cute. It's right there. If you do that, you close it, whatever. So I'm going to go right here, double click, merge. There's my fish. It merged my fish. Now I'm just going to leave it right there for right now. It is way super huge. I, again, have nothing selected. And I'm going to click, I like this one. Merge it. And it's going to bring me over. Here's the other fish. And I'm going to do one more. I'm going to do this one. And so I kind of have this like pink, purpley pink, and turquoisey look going. So let me decide which one I want on each one. Let's see. How do we like this? Do we like this? We like that. Okay. My fish are too big. They're also facing the wrong way, unless you want them swimming up to the top of your bookmark, which is fine. I'm going to select one at a time. This one, I'm going to first come in, and I'm going to rotate it. I didn't say we were going to use the rotate tool. Now, the rotate tool has lots of options. You can rotate it based on a specific 0, 90, 180, 270. You can rotate it in any given direction by 45, 90, or 180. So that's kind of like you can get a little more precise, or you can go in and be very precise. You can custom rotate by a certain percentile or certain angle. So if I want to say, oh, I want to make that one rotate, you know, clockwise by, and actually that's a good point. When you're talking about it, you have 360 in a circle, so 0 is the same as 360. If you go to like 3 o'clock on a clock, that's going to give you 90 degrees. 180 degrees would be like 6 o'clock. 270. There is no, oh, I want to rotate it 90 clockwise or 90 counterclockwise. You just have to think about it in terms of the angle of 0 to 360. So if I'm going to custom rotate it, I can give my angle, or I can custom rotate to a specific angle. So I can say, oh, blah, blah. I use this a lot. Probably 8 out of 10 times I'm using just these rotating tools. Sometimes if I don't want it to go all the way to 90 degrees or whatever the case may be, or I want it to be a little angled, then I use these. I very rarely ever use these down here, okay? So if I want to have this fish facing the right way, notice my ball is right here. Excuse me. Notice the ball is right here. It's at 90, right? I can look and go, okay, well, really it's at 0. If I want it to go, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I've turned my page. It's not making any sense. I just click them. Nope, that's upside down. That's wrong. Undo. Nope, that's upside down the other way. That's wrong. Undo. And then I hit 270. Okay, I got it. But basically, this is your rotate tool. You can click on it and hand rotate it. I don't do very well with my trackpad on my Mac like that. Now, I can place it kind of where I think I want it, and I can resize. And then place it again. Do I like that? Sure do. I sure do. I want to make sure it's within my cut line, okay? And that's great. Now, if I like this size specifically and how it's rotated, I will show you a quick tip. Instead of having to then go through and rotate and resize, this is really so cool. And you're like, she's deleting them. Wait a minute. So I'm going to sit here and go Command-C, Command-V, Command-V. Now I have 3 fish, 1 for each one, and I'm going to make this one a little bit bigger. Notice I'm staying within my ratio. This is important to do this shortcut. If I want to stay within my, if I want to do this shortcut, I have to stay within my ratio. It means I can't size it in one direction or the other. I have to do it by the ratio. So from the corner. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I want this one to be a little bit bigger too. I'm eyeballing this. These are not perfect. Okay, I like this one here, but I want to put that I want to put, I think it was the pink fish was on here. So I've selected the fish. I go over here, and I think it was this pink fish. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was this pink fish. I click it once. It changed that fish. And because I stayed within the ratio, it basically filled the fish with the other color of fish. So again, click on the shape, or click on the Clipart, and I think it was this purpley one. Click it once. Go back. Oh, you have your matching fish. And you have your fish that are the right colors on the right ones. Now, you may say, well, wait a minute. I want to add a cute little text. I want to put just keep swimming because I think that would be cute. I'm going to do my text again. And I'm going to type it out. I'm going to do 3 different words. Just. Okay, now if I was to put this over here, it's hard to see, I know. But one thing that you're going to notice is it's got red cut lines. What that means is when I go in to cut my file, it's going to cut that out. That's fine if you want those letters to not be on there. If I want to be able to just see them, I'm going to go up here to my fill tool. This is actually just fill color. And I'm going to fill it with black. It still has that red cut line. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go in and either remove the line altogether, or if I want it to have a little bit of a like punch out, you can change it to white, you can change it to whatever you want to do. But you don't want it to be the color of your cut. And in this case, my color of my cut is red. If this line stays red, it cuts it. And the machine is not like, oh, she really meant not to cut that. And oh no, it's going to cut. And it's going to cut all the way through, and you're going to be so sad and be like, oh, I just wasted ink. And so just take my advice and change it. So I'm going to go in and pick a slightly different text just to make it kind of cutesy. And since we're doing fish, we'll use fish fingers. Fish fingers is one I also found on DaFont, and I kind of like how it overlaps like that. So we've got just. Again, we're going to go in. This is a good opportunity for me to show you this process again. I highlight my entire text, fill it with black so I can see it, or any other color, but black just happens to be the one that I'm using today. I remove my cut line altogether, go into my text, and since I know what I'm using, I can go up here and say fish, and look, it filled it in for me. Click it. I'm not even changing the size of the text. I'm just keeping it just like this. Keep, just keep, and then we got one more. And notice I didn't highlight it. That's okay. As long as you have the box selected, you should be able to do any changes you need to do. And then text, last part, fish, fingers. And hopefully this is the right size to fit. Oh, look, it's not. So I have an idea. Again, I'm going to resize it slightly. Just enough to make it work. Just keep swimming. So, pretty cute. I like that. So it's a good reminder, just keep swimming. And you can have these say other things, whatever the case may be. Now, last step, and I'm done, I promise. You're going to save it. And I've already given it a save, you know, a name. If I was to click the save icon right here, and I hadn't already done save as, it's going to ask me to name it and all of that. Now, if you remember from my previous video, if not, this may be new to you, that's fine. You can print from Silhouette Studio, or you can print from PDF. I like creating PDFs of my items now. I happen to be printing shipping labels, so I have to change back to my LaserJet. I'm going to go down here and say PDF. And I'm going to say save as a PDF. And it's going to bring up the save box. Again, I'm going to remove this text at the beginning, as well as the file extension for Studio 3, because this is going to be a PDF. I'm going to check and make sure where it's going so it doesn't end up in lost computer land in some folder I never use. And click save. And then I'm going to show you what the completed file looks like as soon as it's done. Now you'll see this is a bigger file because it's got the glitter papers, it's got the clip art, it's got additional text. So this is going to take a little bit longer to save, and that's okay, or to create that PDF. And I always just put them right on my desktop. So here's what we got here. Let's see, view. Where's my rotate? Here we go. Rotate. I want to go to the right. Here are my cutesy little, my little bookmarks. So cute, right? And then what I'm going to do is if I want to go print them, I can go print them and I can cut them out by hand. Or if I want to print them, I can print them from here. It's still got my registration marks. I can go back in my Silhouette and then tell it to go and cut it. Now, I did say I would bring up how to handle this when you don't want to cut out these words by hand. So here is what I would do. Let me zoom in so I can show you on one of them. I would take my rounded rectangle tool, or you can do the regular rectangle tool. I'm going to do the rounded rectangle tool. I'm going to go right like this. I'm going to create right here and right here. Let's get in there, guys. And I'm going to make sure it's about 2.5. Now, here's the other thing. This is awfully sharp in the curve. You can actually go in and still make it curved, but make it a little less curved. I'm not really liking that, so hold on. Let me get rid of this real quick. Let me try a regular rectangle. Okay, I like how my letters fit, and I may just take a corner around or that corner, or cut it with a round corner. Okay, so here's something else you can do. If you don't want to have to cut around all those little teeny tiny little letters, is you can actually take, this is if you're doing this by hand. If you're not doing this by hand, you don't need to do this unless you just feel like it. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this down behind the curve. Ho ho! You may be thinking, what in the world is she doing? And since I'm going to just be printing and cutting, listen to me all fancy, cutting, I can leave this white, and so it will give, and I can change this to make it a cut line. Or you can get really fancy and you go in here and find a paper that you like, maybe even one of your matching ones. I think I want to go in and, let's see, general papers. That's where all my cutesy ones are. And I want to do something different. I'll do one of these. Okay. I like these. These are pretty cute. So I'm going to take, what color was that one? Pink. Pink with turquoise. Okay. I'm going to take this one right here, and I'm going to fill it in that shape. And, oh, you're like, whoa, 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 what'd she do? Where'd my letters go? Okay. This is a little tricky part about Silhouette Studio, that it likes to be tricky. And when you fill it, it's now put this in front, because it's kind of like Photoshop in that it's creating layer upon layer. And what we need to do is reorder those layers. We need to take that rectangle and send it to the back so that your words are in front and it's behind it. So what we can do is, while this is selected, we go up to Object, we do Arrange, and we send it to the back. Ba-ba-da-ba! There is your easy to cut out in one piece with the super cute stuff. Okay, I'm not loving that right now. I'm seeing more like the mauve color in that ombre. So I'm going to try something real quick. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool too. Or I can do this. Let's move it a little bit. That's too pink. Oh, here we go. Now we're like under the sea. And we kind of have a blue that matches here. I could have, if for time's sake, I could have gone and found something else. I like that. So again, save. That's if you want to do it like that. I'm trying to give you options so that you don't feel like you always have to have the machine and all the fancy gewgaws and gadgets. I want you to be able to create cute things for your planners without a whole lot of headache. And once you learn your way around Silhouette Studio, it's so much fun to play around and look for new clip art, new papers, and things like that. So I really encourage you to get creative, get on there, and get trying all this cool stuff. And I really hope you've enjoyed watching my tutorial videos. I have a couple more in the works. And if you have any things you want to know how to do, like creating a planner kit, creating a weekend banner, whatever the case may be, leave me a comment below or find me on Facebook. And I have a group on Facebook, and I would love to hear what you would like to see me kind of break down for you. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. And as always, I'd love to see you subscribe so you can learn more about Silhouette Studio and all sorts of fun crafting projects. Love you guys. Have a great day and a great week ahead. Blessings and love from me to you.